Welcome to Glowing Success. My name is Heidi and I am your host. This podcast is for beauty entrepreneurs. Join me weekly as we dive into the beauty industry's ins and outs, from business strategies, top-selling services, and taboo topics. I will be interviewing industry leaders with empowering stories and game-changing insights. Let's illuminate your path to success together. Let's jump into this next episode. Welcome back to Glowing Success. Today, I'm going to be talking about mastering client consultations. So I have about 6 ways that I will be speaking about this, just to help you have more effective consultations, because I do feel like this can be a challenging point for some people. So if you are having issues with consultations or you think you can improve upon them, listen in. So my first step to having better consultations and having easier consultations and having consultations where your clients are going to want to come back is setting the stage is number 1. So what does that mean? It means getting your room ready, getting your supplies ready, getting your tools ready, getting anything ready for your actual client. And when you think about your room as well, we want to think about our ambiance, right? So, think about the temperature of your room. Think about how noisy it is, or think about your music. Think about every little thing that you would think of that would make you feel comfortable inside your space. Get that ready. So setting the stage. So number 2 is having effective communication. So this is something that could take time, and this is something that we really should be mastering, though, because being an active listener. So when you're listening to somebody talk, you need to be actively trying to listen. So being in the room, being not distracted, being focused on them, being focused on those words that they're saying, and so forth. That's just very bare minimum, right? Active listening. You need to be clear and concise with your answers. So, that sometimes does take some confidence building, and being able to answer in a professional way sometimes takes having keywords kind of jump out at you that you have used regularly. So this is why I say sometimes effective communication can take some time to perfect. But the one thing I will say is reiterate back to your clients. So one thing I learned early on in my communication, and specifically with my consultations, is when the client was saying something to me, I would reiterate it back to them. So one thing that I think is really important as well, and to get into a good habit of, is when your client comes into your room, into your space, reiterate why they're there. So, hey, whatever their name is, I see that you're in here for a lash lift and tint today. Is that correct? And so that really sets the tone for, hey, I see this is what brought you in. Am I getting this correctly? Because you'd be surprised of how sometimes they're like, no, that's not what I booked. And, oh, I wanted to book that instead. Or they say so many other things. So start there, because that might change your whole appointment. And then go on to, well, what brought you in today? That's kind of one of my go-to questions. And they can kind of go from there and elaborate. And then when they do say something like, well, I want my lashes to be a little bit more open, or I want my lashes to have a curl that I don't have to worry about every day, reiterate back to them. Say, hey, what I'm hearing is you said you wanted a curl that is a little bit more open, and this is how I'm going to do that for you. So effective communication is not always just about active listening. It's also, about you responding back to them. So the third thing is the actual consultation, right? So we're kind of practicing effective communication. We were practicing setting the stage, but now we're actually getting into the consultation. So a lot of times your forms are going to help you with this. So obviously you usually have a client fill out some kind of form, probably a health intake form or some kind of form to get to know them when they're first coming in. If you don't have this, maybe think about it, because that could open those doors of communication and kind of set you up for these are the questions I need to ask. So when you're looking at that form, it'll gather information. You could say, okay, I see that you're good to go with this and this and this. But this is your opportunity during the consult, is to assess what they're wanting to get done, assess the results they're wanting to get. So one thing I will say is we always want to set realistic expectations for our clients, right? So If you have a client come in and they have unrealistic expectations for what result they're looking for, this is your opportunity to set those expectations accordingly. And so you really can let them know, hey, this is my realistic result that I feel like you're going to achieve. These are the things I have for you. This is what I'm going to be doing today, and so forth, right? So your actual consultation really should be you're active listening, you're practicing that, you're giving them realistic expectations, you're also assessing why they're in. And then also, this is an opportunity for you to kind of briefly go over what their service is going to feel like that day. And this is very important if you're going to have a first-time client doing something. So if, let's say, they're coming for a facial, just kind of briefly go over what you're going to be doing in the facial. Even though you might say this while they're on the table, you still want to invite them in. So, sometimes consultations are so much more about inviting that client and getting to know them and building that rapport more than actually all like the health assessment and all those things. You're building that bridge from them not being a client to all of a sudden coming back to you as a regular. Okay. The other thing I really want to talk about when it comes to consultations is difficult situations. So sometimes you're going to run into a client that either didn't have the expectation from somebody else, that they thought they got a bad service, or you're having a client come back in for a service you have to correct, and so forth. So this is definitely part of the consultation process, is dealing with clients that maybe are either negative or, maybe had bad experience, or maybe looking for something they've never had, or unrealistic expectations. But this is your opportunity to turn a negative into a positive, right? So let's say you gave them a bad service, and we're human. We're all going to mess up, or we're all not going to accurately give services out sometimes. This is your opportunity to learn from that experience and say, hey, I'm so sorry that result happened. I am here to fix it. This is my plan today going forward, and this is how I know you'll get these results. So you can always turn it around. But the one advice I would give you when it comes to difficult situations is a lot of times clients just want to be heard. So that is a good opportunity for you to be quiet, let them talk for however long they want to talk, and really reiterate that you apologize for them feeling that way. I'm so sorry this happened, things like that. And especially if you feel like they are in the right. Now, if a client is wrong, so let's say they are not telling the truth, or they are, just having something is not what it is, there is a tactful way to going about that as well, and still making them feel like you're taking care of them. So, maybe sometimes pointing out things to them that are very clear to point out, and then say, hey, I still want you to be happy. I still want you to walk away with whatever you want, whatever their outcome that they want is, which is very particular to them. And they probably have already expressed that to you. So when you're letting them talk, that is their opportunity to tell you what they want out of that whole situation. Do you want a refund? Do you want it to be fixed? How can I make you happy? And I will say, generally speaking, making clients happy you'll avoid bad reviews. You'll avoid a lot of different things. And especially if they're there giving you that opportunity to get that time. Now, a lot of clients that are unhappy, they probably won't do that, and they'll just leave you a bad review, and then you'll have to deal with it online. So it is better that they're coming in. So if you have a client that came in and is spending that time with you to talk about what they're not happy about, think of that as a good thing, because they are wanting to complete that, that circle, so to speak. So that is your opportunity to turn a negative into a positive. The last couple things I'll talk about when it comes to consultations is the follow-up. So this is definitely forgotten about by a lot of people. Now, this is something I teach in one of my classes about how to follow up with your clients. So it is very important for you to follow up in some way, especially if they're a new client. I have a whole episode about following up with clients, but I do think this is something that's so important. It's not thought about enough, and it could really make your client feel very special. But yeah, following up in any way possible. So whether it be email, a postcard, something, however they like to communicate. And in general, that is definitely a question I would put on your forms of how would you like me to communicate with you going forward. And you could communicate that way to them with the follow-up. So, and the follow-up could be just a check-in. The follow-up could be a feedback form. The follow-up could be inviting them to book their next appointment if they didn't already. So there's a lot of different ways, but we always want to get feedback from our clients if possible. So that's one of my favorite ways to follow up, is to getting feedback. But follow-up is necessary. It definitely will let that client feel special, and it'll let them know you're thinking about them. And last but not least, saving everything in your consultation, in your notes, in the client's notes, and so forth. So this, believe it or not, there's a lot of service providers out there that I've worked alongside or had work with me that did not leave very good notes. And I will say it's so important. So not only is it important if you're working in an environment where you're working in a spa or salon, it's important for another person if they end up taking your client or end up taking that client for different services even. And it's a good way for them to get to know the client, but it's also, if they take them for that same service, it's a good way for them to know what you did already and so forth. But then it's also good for you to remember. So I put a ton of things in my clients' notes. Like I put, if we had conversations about their kids, how many kids they have, what are they doing for summer, what kind of job do they have, like anything that we talked about that is like personal information, so to speak, I put in their client notes because I want to remember those things. And generally speaking, when I look at their client notes before they come in for the day, I'll be like, oh yeah, we did have that conversation. And then it comes back in my memory because I've looked at my notes, right? So, and those key points help you with building a rapport faster and helping you build that, trust faster. But this is really good for a lot of different reasons. Like, let's say you had them fill out a form, and that form indicated that they were not, in contraindication towards that service. So this is good to put on your notes. Say, hey, she's not contraindicated for blah, blah, blah. And, she's good to go. She has this on her skin, da, da, da. It's so good because when you get very busy, trust me, those notes are going to come in handy because you are not going to remember every single thing about every client you take. I'm sorry, but that's just impossible. So for me, I keep my notes in Square because I use Square, and Square keeps everybody's profiles. So all my clients have profiles where I can put files in. So I can put pictures I take. I can put files that I upload. I can put notes. There's a whole note section that you can put in. There's a lot of different opportunities inside those client profiles. And I know that a lot of the online companies like Gloss Genius and so forth, they have all the same things. So really utilize those client profiles to the best that you can. If you're not using an online processor, credit card processor, or scheduler, I would say keep something maybe on your phone or keep it on paper, some way where you can keep notes on your clients. It's very, very important. Now, those are all the different ways that I think you can master your client consultations. I hope those things help you. I hope you can implement a couple of these ideas or a couple things to really help you, because I promise you, if a client feels taken care of right from the very beginning of that appointment all the way into the end, they are going to book with you again. They'll probably share with their friends and family, and they'll probably spend more money with you. So having a great consultation is just the beginning, but I promise you that'll have those clients coming back. But thank you for listening. I hope you liked that episode and found something useful or a tip that you can use immediately. If you are wanting more marketing tips, business tips, or anything like that, I have a lot of resources on my website. So I have PDFs that you can download for free. So look in your show notes. There should be a link in the show notes that you can click on, and it'll take you right to my coaching website. And thanks for listening.